About a month ago, I was at one of the libraries here in rural Colorado, and I came across a book entitled Chasing the Sun. Here is the author, Richard Cohen. And what I'm going to do is I am going to order this book because it looks like it is about $6. And this is a book that the author describes, and I haven't even really started to read it yet, but I did sit down at the library and read enough of the introduction to realize this person has dedicated most of their life to compiling a variety of mythologies about the sun. Let me go ahead and we're not going to be going on for an hour, right? But I'm going to read a little bit from the introduction, and he's talking about the mythologies of the sun. Before we do that, let me read the name of some of the chapters. Okay, so it gets into solar myths in the beginning. Children of the Sun. Chapter 2, celebrating the seasons. Chapter 3, the 3,000 witnesses. That gets into the earth, standing stones, Stonehenge, the pyramids, and New York. Also something called New Grange. It's not a term I'm familiar with. Chapter 4, tears of the sky, auroras and eclipses, their respective histories from 2000 BC. There's a lot of things and terms I'm not familiar with and aware of that this book gets into. And perhaps the same may be for some of you. So it may be great for additional dot connecting. I think that we have a deeper spiritual connection to the sun. I think there is more to discuss than societal collapse. And there are other perspectives to discuss with regards to maybe a natural earth reset. We have to take an honest look at what the collective humans are doing on the ground. We have Discovering the Sun, Chapter 5, the first astronomers, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the ancient Egyptians. We have Chapter 6, Enter the Greeks. Right? Maybe we'll just go over the chapters. We're literally just going to go over the table of contents in this video. But I was happy to see it. This is on eBay for like $5 or $6. Okay, Pythagoras, on and on. Gifts of the Yellow Emperor, Chapter 7, right? Yin and Yang, the Way and the Sun, Chapter 8. The Sultans, Tourette, Arabia's Great Astronomers, another subject I have not looked into. India and Western Europe, 600 to 1543. Chapter 9, The Earth Moves. Chapter 10, Strange Seas of Thought. Chapter 11, Eclipses and Enlightenment. Chapter 12, The Sun Dethroned. It gets into solar physics. 1800 to 1950, The Making of the Atomic Bomb. We have Chapter 13, Sunspots. Chapter 14, The Qualities of Light, which is light and war and sport and crime, shadows, sunsets, and twilight. Really? In crime, in sport. Sounds like that's a chapter I'm going to dig. The human behavioral response to the solar activity. We have Chapter 15, Beneath the Beating Sun. Chapter 16, Skin Deep. Chapter 17, The Breath of Life. That gets into photosynthesis, and it's those that discovered it, plants and the sun, hibernation and migration. Chapter 18, The Dark Biosphere. Creatures of the deep, currents and tides. By the way, folks, I am producing podcasts on Patreon. As I'm creating this video, we also have a new video on VHX and another new upload that will be going there tomorrow. It's a busy week for me. So stay if you can. Subscribe, like, share. If you feel like joining the other platforms, there's more content there at this time. Also taking requests for specific content. Of course, relating to things that I already talk about. So if you're already on Patreon and you have a specific request, there's another podcast regarding meditation and connecting with the sun. The topic of harnessing the power of the sun in a meditative practice is something that will be explored more. So I can go on and on into the chapters. It continues on. At least 32 chapters, nearly 33 chapters. The last one, by the way, is entitled, it's an area of focus for many humans at this time during a solar minimum, which we are now in, the death of the sun. Are we going to see a long-term decline, as many people have been predicting in recent years, of solar activity? Not that the sun is dying per se, but the output of the sun is reducing at a rate of the modern civilization reliant on sun at a solar activity and cycle at a normal rate. A massive reduction in this light clearly is going to be affecting a massive population, for better or for worse. Who knows? Maybe we chose to come here during these times to learn about cause and effect. And so there is a much deeper conversation to have in addition to the other conversations that others are having. Remember to look at things outside the box of the norm. Now let's take a look. Let's take a look at some of the information in the introduction. At the preface, the author talks a little bit about his own experience being drawn to looking at the sun. Quote, right? I want to know about the great solar temple, standing amid the ruins of Machu Picchu. Mozart celebrating the sun in The Magic Flute. Charlie Chaplin mocking Hitler's love of sun imagery in The Great Dictator. And why for 1,500 years the civilized West stuck with the ancient notion of the sun circling the earth, but most volumes aimed at a specialized area, and the non-scientists who tackled a particular aspect either looked mildly at the science or took minimal interest in it. This book has taken nearly 8 years to complete, over which time I have visited 18 countries on 6 of the 7 continents, end quote. Now I'm going to go and read just a few pages from the introduction. And again, I found this at the library, a little bit of a short story. I'm sitting there going back, deciding that I'm going to check out the book, right? But it's not there. So then I go to the librarian, in a wild stab at the air. Have you seen maybe a big book, yellow, about the sun? Has the sun in big letters on the cover? And she wasn't familiar with it, but she did write a note. And believe it or not, in a world where sometimes we wonder where the competency is, believe it or not, that book was put on hold. So here it is. And I mean, this is something that is like an encyclopedia. I've already talked to you about several other books, one by Mitch Batros, one by a German author, 2009, then the Gregory Sam's book, Son of God. That's also 2009. I've also referenced my ebook and my plan for a sequel where it's really going to break this down even more as time goes on, as we approach the solar maximum. So in my older years, I'm going to have more information in writing my perspectives, my outside-the-box perspectives on the sun. And as we go into the 2020s, we can start to see things move even further. As we go deeper into solar minimum, the effects of the sun, including the effects of the sun on human consciousness, the magnetite, right? The planetary K index, when it's more active. Some believe that when it's less active in the KP index, some people lose it. That could be very possible as well. How we see extremes in the activity, or when the sun goes into a change, whatever the change is, those that are not grounded, those that are not balanced, when other poles are flipping, they may flip as well. Sunrise, Mount Fuji is being discussed. Why does Fuji come into mind? We're not going to read the chapter, but in the Truman Show, which is often described as a movie, it has a metaphor of him questioning his reality and the archetype of his matrix. Remember that one place where he wanted to go, but he couldn't necessarily find a way to get there, but it seemed to represent his desire to find the true gnosis of his reality, his desire to see Fiji. The Sun Before Science. We're reading a section From that, several cultures describe the sun in more than one way. To the Egyptian, the solar gods numbered not only Ra, but, if I pronounce this right, Khepri, the self-transforming one, and Harakati, quote, the far one. The Aztecs employed their own deity, representing a hummingbird, to mean both the rising sun and the star at its zenith. The sun is continually reborn, so that in all they had a jaguar sun, a wind sun, a rain of fire sun, and another name of a deity that's difficult to enunciate, who became a fifth solar force, that of the earthquake. The Mayans thought of the sun as a rattlesnake and named their towns with a X prefix to represent the sound of a snake as it sheds its old skin and, like the sun, takes on a new one. Certainly takes us on a new ride, a new cycle. Yet whatever form the sun takes, an eye, a wing, a boat, a dragon, a fish, a bird, there is a common core, a similarity to these tales that spring up in cultures often hemispheres and millennia apart. Sometimes the sun is seen as so overwhelming a threat that it must in some way be tamed. Again, we talk about how often the sun is looked at only in one way by those that live today. In ancient Chinese mythology, for instance, the goddess Zihi, if I enunciated that correctly, gives birth to 10 sons. That may have been the giant that we spoke about in Chinese mythology in previous videos. But the goddess giving birth to 10 sons, which rise simultaneously into the heavens, burning the harvest and all plant life. Each morning the goddess bathes one of them, letting it fly up to her on the back of a crow. One day all the sons escape and life on earth becomes unbearable. A variety of monsters scour the land. The ogre with long teeth, who kills with water and fire, a giant bird that unleashes the wind, and a giant boar and a great serpent. The wretched people below endlessly beg the sons to come down, but they refuse. Total destruction impends until a young archer slays the ogre, the monster, and the giant bird cuts the serpent in two, captures the boar in his crowning act, shooting down 9 of the sons. Ever since the story concludes, there has been only one last son. Almost all ancient civilizations believe the universe to have existed for unknown ages without benefit of any human intervention. The same did not hold true for the sun, which is a host of mythologies, exists only by virtue of man's nurture. The Hopi of Northeast Arizona, and I'm going to add in Southwest Colorado and other places. We talked about Mesa Verde and them having some sort of knowledge of the sun's movement. There's also a recent video on YouTube uploaded that discusses that further. Okay, so the Hopi claim that they made the sun by throwing up a buckskin shield along with a fox's coat and a parrot's tail to make the colors of sunrise and sunset. But whatever form or character it took, the sun was rarely cast as fully invulnerable. And it has been variously depicted as having been freed from a cave or stolen, or having sprung into life through the self-sacrifice of a god or hero. Among the Inuit of the Bering Strait, all creation is attributed to a raven father who was so annoyed at man's rapacity that he hides the sun in a bag. The terrified people offer him gifts until he relents, only to a degree holding the sun up in the sky for a time before removing it again. Every early society personifies the cycles of nature, but where the sun is concerned, cultures have differed on its gender. And then it continues. So this is a very, very interesting book, Chasing the Sun. Remind me this week, I'm reminding myself that this is a book that I need to pick up. I'm letting you know about it before I even begin to take a serious read. There's a lot of people out there following this channel that have an interest in the sun. Don't forget about the spiritual side of something so interconnected to our lives. Check out the links down below. Join Patreon. There's another podcast coming for supporters tonight, as well as OutsideTheBox.vhx.tv.